Welcome to Product for Product. Today we're talking with Ken Hanson. He's a product manager at rewardStyle, and we're going to be covering the product analytics tool Amplitude. This is a continuation of our product analytics series, and we're looking forward to speaking with Ken about his experience with Amplitude and learning more about him and his work as a product manager. Ken, why don't you introduce yourself?
Hey, I'm Ken.
Hi, Ken.
Yeah, I come from the growth and data nerd background, but I've always fallen in love with just the execution of things, and so product management just became this natural pathway for me to land in, and I'm really enjoying it a lot.
You mentioned you come from a data background.
Yeah, I just have always been like a really nerdy analytic guy.
Oh, that's cool. That's what I am. So that's cool.
Nice. Yeah.
I thought, Matt, that you're going to perk up when you hear that.
Yeah, so. I did. I jumped on that as soon as I heard data. I said, "What? Okay, that's now you're speaking my language." So yeah, that's me. I'm the data analytics guy. So
nice.
So that's good. Good to hear.
I think just across the career, I've just touched in many different lives, like so many things, like so many product managers. So
yeah,
but data was always like the most exciting to me. Just being able to track everything that would prove or disprove all of your assumptions along the way, and then just applying the science of it all to it. Just was such an exciting concept when Wieden and Kennedy is like still running massive ads on the Super Bowl.
Yep.
And you just watch those things and you're just like, how do they know?
Exactly.
Like household, like, I mean, what does that even mean? Like, how many eyeballs are they reaching? Like,
yep.
And very rapidly, everything started catching up to be able to track all things all the time. So I just sort of leapt on that trend and hung on for dear life, and I've been enjoying it.
Yeah, it's hard to avoid. Data touches everything these days, and it permeates in everything we do these days, and we create it, and it's everything we do is creating it. So. It's hard to avoid it these days, for sure.
Yeah, definitely.
So tell us a bit about rewardStyle. What do they do exactly, and what's your position over there?
Yeah, so as of Monday, actually, I am spearheading a new function there as a product manager.
Oh, nice.
MarTech. So it's all these things combined with all the execution stuff for like no-code solutions and marketing teams to get a hold of. Very similar like Pendo type solutions and many other tools. But yeah, so in general, rewardStyle really services kind of three different business types, where we have it's kind of like a B to B to C. So we work with brands, influencers, and consumers. We have a platform for the influencers to, monetize the content that they produce.
Oh, okay.
And then we have a consumer platform that helps those consumers discover those people. And then we help brands connect through casting to be able to find an influencer that fits with their brand and work out an arrangement for them to post content for them with obligations and things like that. And so those are all three kind of tied together to feed all those ecosystems that we've created so that, one side is able to find the other and, monetize. So
Nice.
Yeah.
And going into the topic of our discussion today about Amplitude. So you guys have been using Amplitude for how long now?
I don't know their actual install date,
okay.
But they were kind of long in the tooth with Amplitude when I came on board a couple of years ago. So
it's been a while.
Longer than 2 years for sure.
Cool. And can you describe for us a bit what you're using Amplitude for? What are some scenarios that rewardStyle is using it?
Yeah, definitely. It's most heavily used on the consumer side. So all behavior is really tracked in the Amplitude side, and just helps us be able to see through anonymized data and aggregate data, various funnels for conversion, various like retention analysis. But in general, if you're looking at, the pyrometrics for a startup, every one of those levers is going to be able to be reported on inside of Amplitude. So, all the important stuff that would lead you to understand how people are activating, or lead you to understand how people are retaining, or what their usage intervals are, or how they're referring, all of that can end up in Amplitude. And they've got just really amazing ways for product managers to instantly recognize like a report type, hit a couple buttons, very easily search down some events or some attributes, and then be able to create insights from that data that they can then share with the team, or create a notebook and write up a report around and things like that. So,
and you mentioned that the data is anonymized. So are there still like attributes for different users that you can do segmentation based on them?
Oh, definitely. Yeah.
Okay.
When I say, anonymized, we've just taken great pains to make sure that there is no personally identifiable information that we're sending Amplitude.
Oh, okay.
That's nice.
It's all kind of stripped away into these, giant hashes of user IDs that don't mean anything to a human.
Right.
But, upon export, if we needed to track down and look at, merging that data, we could, but, that's a very like Fort Knox protected kind of situation that just doesn't occur.
Yeah, it is usually an interesting topic to talk about when we do implementation, integrating with the third-party applications like that collect information about your users. So you do want to protect their data. So how much is too much and how much is enough to be able to support your business? Because some of these applications also will have features that it would be useful to know who the user is. So that's really like to you when you implement it, to see what you're going to do with that. Are you going to actually expose this data or not?
Right. Yeah. And Amplitude is very far away from being like a CRM. Like you're not going to really trigger campaigns or anything from it, where you would need to know like a first name and a last name, and you probably aren't going to feed out to your CRM with it, but you definitely can. And it's got lots of connections to lots of MarTech out there, among other tech, but, the way we use it is to just understand the usage of our apps.
Right. Now, we talked in the past, and we in previous episodes, we were talking about product like Pando, and over there is quite a bit of other functionalities, not just for analytics. And you mentioned also you're familiar with Pando. Is Amplitude just product analytics, or do they have other features around that help product people do other things?
It's just analytics. Yeah, hard stop. Like there's not, if there is, I don't know about the functionality, but I would say I would have bumped into some sort of like split test feature or some sort of, campaign or something like that. But they really don't have anything outside of analytics, which I would describe them in a, like, if you're not a query writer, where you're actually slinging SQL or some other like Looker style query, that's not your need or your forte, this is probably the best in class that I've experienced at this mid-tier level. And then, as you climb up into like the huge corporate, world, and you land in like the Adobes and things like that, Amplitude is such a breath of fresh air. Like it's very clear that they've just obsessed about the user experience for the analyst, which is rare.
Well, that's great to hear. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. They're making it easy for the analyst to use and really do the data exploration. That's good to hear.
Yeah. And I would describe that as like, if any product managers are hearing me say analyst, like, and then running for the hills, you really shouldn't, right? Like, because it's
we're all analysts at the end of the day.
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah. Because this is more, I look at Amplitude kind of like checkers, right? Like, versus chess. Like you can play chess like you play checkers and you do okay, but chess is super deep and it can take a lifetime to learn all the little nooks and crannies. Amplitude is very similar. There's a lot of ways to like really make it flex in a direction that it wasn't intended to, so that you can get a deeper analysis, but you don't really need that. Like any product manager can drop in and look at like a impact analysis and pretty rapidly see like the result and understand like what it's trying to tell you. And if you can't, it's got hover bubbles like all over the place to explain to you like why or what the use case is, in combination with all their amazing like playbooks and write-ups. And
well, that's helpful. because that makes it actionable. I mean, I think,
Exactly.
that allows not only a project manager or an analyst. An analyst wants to get into the weeds, wants to really do the deep dive into chess.
Yeah.
But a product manager who really needs to act on something, who's been, tasked with I need to do this or I do X or Y, to be able to hop in, get some actionable insight, and then move and take action on it. That's great to hear.
Yeah, definitely. And it's really designed for that. Like
Cool.
you're aiming at a metric that you're trying to understand a little bit better, and then you're wanting to peel things apart once you understand it, and then it's excellent at that.
Cool.
Yeah, that sounds great. And I think that you also mentioned that you are familiar with some other systems similar to that. Do you know why specifically? You mentioned that it was before your time, but do you know why they chose Amplitude compared to other systems?
I'm almost positive it's because it's so heavily marketed at product managers, but that's really an assumption, Moshe. I just, I don't want to.
Marketing. I don't know if that's the right reason to choose a product. So.
Well, like they know their customer and their product market fit really resides with product managers.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
When I started looking into space, when I really started investigating the product management space, Amplitude was that first product that popped out.
Yeah.
Whether that was marketing or whatnot, I don't know, but they were the first one that popped up on my radar. And then I moved into Heap and Mixpanel. For whatever reason, they were best in class. We're number one. I'm not using them right now, but yeah, that's something to consider.
Nothing against marketing, but at the end of the day, it's really all about the product. So if you're looking at different products and comparing them, that's really where the power comes in. That we see the value, not so much what they're telling us the value should be.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, definitely.
So when you compare it with other products, what are the things that you like about it that either don't have in other products or they just do better than other products?
When I dropped in for the first time to use Amplitude, I especially since I was coming off of the back of other products like Mixpanel and Google Analytics, like, actually using the eventing in Google Analytics and those reports, as well as like having done consulting to stand up the Adobe stack around all of their acquisitions. Amplitude just far and away is much more impressive than these other guys as far as the ease of use. So, for me, walking into an enormous, like 700 events tracked, right? Like unique events tracked. And I think we're doubled at this point 2 years later. But when I dropped in, it was very simple for me to drop in, understand what the event meant, where, it was firing, look at the definition and the screenshot attached to that event by hovering the event. So that I was just able to say, like, I just need to see this push notification prompt acceptance. I searched, push, saw a bunch of signatures that kind of matched, hovered, rolled through all the documentation right there in the report generator. And then, fired off a couple of events to really like watch and see how these consumers are firing these events in our apps so that I could fully understand what the event actually meant. And then, just a couple steps later, I was able to, produce several different types of charts just to be able to really understand the way that prompt was being dropped or accessed or, moved on from. And then really rapidly was able to write up a proof of concept like ticket and get some work going on it. And so to say that about really anything in particular that would require any sort of data layers or, as complicated as the Adobe stack gets, like there's just no world where you could do that with anything else aside from some of these smaller guys like Mixpanel and things like that. But I'd still say, even when, as much as I love Mixpanel and how they enable you to do querying inside of it, Amplitude is definitely the best experience that I've used so far.
Interesting.
It's, to me, the UX is head and shoulders above Google for sure, Adobe for sure. Maybe is, slightly better, or I don't know, it's I wouldn't say significantly, but slightly a better UX than, Mixpanel. Heap, for me, I didn't get to use it extensively. I did, proof of concept it, and Heap felt like it didn't have as much power as Amplitude. And then, the other things that I think every marketer loves to grab and look at are these heat maps that like Crazy Egg and other things create. Amplitude just says right out of the gate, like heat maps are for your executives. They don't help anybody.
So they don't bother with them at all?
They don't, not at all.
Mm-hmm,
There's no heat map feature, and I'm
mm-hmm,
okay with that.
Yeah,
Yeah.
for sure. There is something else that came up when we talked with other in the previous episodes about other products. The setup of different events. You mentioned that when you started, there was 700 events, and later on, now it's probably double that. And in some of the products, the events are defined by the developer. So the developer has to define those events for every specific events to actually appear in the product analytics product, where in other systems, non-developer could do that through an interface in this application. How is it done with the Amplitude?
Yeah, Amplitude is a developer solution. You need to embed the event at the moment you need to fire it and populate the attributes and the event name with the specifics. So it avoids, it does raise the barrier to entry for anybody to grab it and start using it. However, it does also dodge the problem of having all this made out of glass data layers that change and explode like Pendo does when like CSS classes are reintroduced or changed. And so like the tagging layer doesn't exist. There's no way to actually get an event into Amplitude unless you are shipping it in there via
with
a third
application
party or with a dev.
Yeah. And that's really like some people probably will look at it as a pro, some people will look at it as a con. So it really depends. It really depends on what your preference is, I would guess.
Yeah, and I think it's right down the middle. The con is obviously the barrier to entry and the setup and the taxonomy, and it's a lot. You really have to kind of think through it. But then the pro is that your analytics are reliable, and the only way that it can break is if your dev breaks it. And that's much more rare than me grabbing the incorrect class name or the devs changing the class names under it, which they absolutely should be able to do without any sort of worry. There's nothing that slows a dev down more than worrying about breaking a data layer,
or at least if they break it, they have to communicate it with other people that are supporting the system, so they know they broke it and they can fix it. So
right,
there is
exactly.
more of that has to be done for sure.
Yeah, definitely.
Nice. No, that's really good to hear. I mean, we're always saying on these episodes that this is audio only. There is no video here, so it's very hard for us to show it. So sometimes, people have to experience it for themselves for sure. Because what they see is much different than what they perceive. But I think this is also really helpful to get a direction towards a specific product if some people prefer this way or that way.
Yeah.
Is there anything in Amplitude that you have seen it there that no one else is doing?
No, I think things like Looker and like other more advanced analysis tools like do this stuff pretty well. I would say the things that make it kind of more of a standout for me are just the one button tap ability to just spin up like pretty complicated reports that if you're writing queries takes much longer. But even if you're not writing queries, if you dive into like something like Mixpanel, being able to generate some of these usage intervals sliced down by segments and things like that, there's not really a dedicated button for that. Like so when you're digging into AMP, and it's been a while since I've used Mixpanel, so maybe those buttons exist now. I'm not going to claim that they don't, but when I was using it, they did not, definitely. And so with Amplitude, those singular buttons that are ready to go are amazing, and product managers will recognize them right away.
Tell me a bit more about that, because that's intrigued me. What do you mean exactly by one button to create? Because that sounds like magical.
Pull it up because there's no way I'm going to be able to properly describe this unless I'm
try to tell me a story there, because we're audio.
I will. So I'm pulling that up now. I think for what was really kind of exciting to me was just this, like right when you open it up, top left, as you're reading across the page, the giant new button opens and you have charts, user cohorts, dashboards, and notebooks where you can like explain your insights. And then from there, it's the charts can be segmentation and funnels, retention, like just right out of the gate, a retention report. with like several different options inside of there of how you want to display that and how you want to calculate that. User compositions, and those are like the things that are like table stakes for any analytics software that's a product manager is going to use.
So what you're saying is that they have like a built-in views or reports that they almost like predict that this is really what you're looking for, and you will just go there and find them right away.
Yeah. And like, I think the cooler stuff that really kind of caught my eye were these, there's like a persona generator based on behavior. There's an engagement
that's interesting.
Where you can see like feature X has this much engagement impact when it's used twice. Pathfinders, obviously, but the pathfinders are like one-click steps away from like any chart, any data point. You can then pathfind how several groups of people with similar behaviors got there on that day, and then spin off a segment or whatever you need to do. There's a stickiness chart that should be very attractive to any product manager to really understand, how
sticky something is.
Yeah, and like how you're tightening the usage intervals or expanding the session lengths. And
so it does seem like they do speak also the language that really attract product manager attention.
Yeah, and that's really kind of what I meant. Like, it's easy for them to run marketing against product managers because the tool has been built for them. And they really do deliver on that promise. But yeah, I mean, there's just so many ways to do analysis that makes sense to a product manager. And it might, be more frustrating to your analyst type people. And I know I work with like a true blue data scientists at rewardStyle that are so frustrated with the way that it works and wants to query, because they could just write the 10-line SQL so quickly in their head. But you're clicking like 8 buttons to get that done, and these more complicated things. But if you're just a product manager slinging stuff out and trying to look and see what the impact of your feature has been or where you need to take the product,
we don't want to waste time in querying. We just want the results.
You just want to hit the button and and then get a little bit tighter on it once you're in there.
And I'm sure you can export the data from Amplitude and put it in their data warehouse, so those analysts 100%. Can do whatever they want with that data, right?
Yeah. And in fact, it's very modern to be able to do it. Like they do that very well.
That's very cool. So it's actually recommending insights without your intent. It's actually discovering insights that you may not have thought of.
Yeah, and it's like really broad topics that would suck you into them offering you up those insights where, as a product manager, you want to make a chart for something, so you're in the analytics, and so then you're looking at something like life cycle. Oh, okay, yeah, it's the life cycle button, and you're seeing the churn and the new users and the retained users all kind of represented properly together at any time series you want. And so it's got this really amazing capability where once you learn how to grab events and attributes and segments and filter those, every report works that way. Everything works that way. So you learn one thing, and that knowledge then empowers you across every other report. It's really well done. And there's just it's really simple and straightforward once you've wrapped your head around what event-based analytics are and how those arrive. And I think that, one thing that I think product managers, especially new ones at new companies that have existing Amplitude instances, they have this thing where you can X-ray your own user while like in real time right on top of your query. So if you're looking for that prompt or that, permission primer or, the flow, and you don't know what the events are, you can just use the app and watch your user fire all the events in real time. And then you can work with those events and add them to the report and then build it out.
How real time is real time? Is it right away?
Like 5 seconds real time.
Oh, that's very nice. Yeah. That's also something really nice. Cool. What about if we're taking it the other way? I asked you before, something unique that you really like over there. Is there something that you don't like? Because they might be listening Amplitude to this episode eventually. So if you mention something you don't like, maybe they will fix it. Who knows, right?
Yep.
Yeah, no doubt. I think I've written them support requests no less than 4 times for this feature, and they still don't have it. Being able to say like, I care about this report off of these events and this segmentation, but only for that user's first session. So like I with this new MarTech function that's being rolled out, previously I was in activation. So everything is about first session. How fast do they understand the app? And then how often do they return and do that second important action to be activated or considered activated, right? And so like first session's impossible. Properly. There's no button for first session analysis. There's buttons for like new users and only the new users. But that's not first session. And, there are hacks to get it done, and the support will, happily, provide you with that solution. But they're not elegant, and they're painful because you got to click a lot of buttons to make that work.
Yeah.
Or you need to work with your devs to blow up even more data point usage to be able to do that first session start and end, framing to create a box for your analysis to sit between. And so those attributes have to exist, which is also super hard. And devs aren't excited to do first session tracking, start and end. They want the, SDKs to handle that for them. And I know for sure that I was able to do this in Mixpanel pretty easily. So it was kind of shocking to me that like the first session stuff isn't there. And then the second thing I would say is just miserable, is that they really don't support people that know how to do querying. So if you're writing, any sort of, anything SQL-like, that's not going to happen here. You're going to move the data somewhere else. But, something like Mixpanel has JQL. And I mean, if you're running Mixpanel analysis and you're kind of this power user to be able to do these queries, they have a JavaScript-ish kind of looking syntax that feels very natural to somebody that has written SQL before. And if a report's not doing what you want in Mixpanel, you can go nuts with JQL. I was building full-blown hosted dashboards with my own Bootstrap HTML and CSS in Mixpanel, accessible in Mixpanel for anybody that had access to Mixpanel, and generating whatever query I wanted to run. Again, data that was already hosted in Mixpanel. That's impossible here.
I see. The interesting point here is that, there is the big old discussion or argument about whether product managers should have technical background or not. And these days is, I don't know if it's split 50-50, but I've seen, I don't remember where I've seen some of those surveys about where people are coming from, but a lot are coming without this technical background from MBA programs or from tech support, etc. Sorry, not even tech support, customer support.
Right.
So if you don't have that background, then a tool like that is quite useful to you, that you don't really have to think about the queries.
Absolutely.
and it makes your work much easier, and you don't have to dive in and learn all of this. What is that SQL exactly? and find the information. Where maybe Mixpanel think about it the opposite way, that product manager should have technical background, that if you have that power, then you could use that. So that's really interesting. And I'm building off what you said, that they're really marketing to product managers, so maybe more than non-technical product managers.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, it just didn't make the cut, in that roadmap. So
and also what you mentioned before about the first session experience. This is also an interesting thing, because usually when you look at, I'm not talking specifically about why they did it, why they didn't do it yet, etc., and why they're still behind on implementing something like that. But adoption of new features is an interesting topic for us product managers. Because usually you will see people interested in looking at the new feature, but they may not adopt it. So there will be a spike in usage in the beginning, especially if we put in-app guides or any other type of marketing to tell them that the new feature exists. And then there will be a drop down, and you will see only after that normalization of the adoption. And maybe, I'm just guessing here, maybe there is something there about that maybe they think the first impressions is not really should be tracked. I don't know.
Well, I do just want to make sure I clarify, like they're very good at tracking adoption of a feature
over time.
Over time, definitely. For me, it was really the struggle was I just need to see what's happening in first sessions only. Like I don't care about what's happening after that. For this feature and experiment absolutely should have boosted first session engagement.
Especially if you do experimentation. That's true.
Right. And that's actually my background, is
because you may not have any other opportunity.
Right, exactly. Right.
Yeah.
And I can't unwind that experiment and try it again. I mean, I could, but the whole point of running an experiment is to get to the result quickly and understand it quickly. And time is money in experimentation.
You miss that opportunity.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. So, it's possible. It's not elegant in the way, and maybe I'm just spoiled because I think most analytic tools are not all that elegant. But everything in Amplitude is elegant except for that.
Well, hopefully someone is hearing this and they're going to do something about it, right?
Yeah, I hear it's on the roadmap, but I've been hearing that for a couple of years. So.
Oh, okay. But as a product manager, how tough that is, right? So we're not even going to get into that discussion here, but we all know how tough that is. So we talked a bit about the company itself. How is the company behind the product?
Oh, they're phenomenal. Yeah. So their support's great. It's not the canned responses that you'd usually get from most tech support, or even, they have a whole category of, I don't know how to query something. And then somebody will reach out to you really, really excited to go deep on your challenge. So, and then they'll pull up your taxonomy and they'll look at your actual, setup and make suggestions with your own data, linking your report to your own data to explain how they executed, for example, first session, right? And so that was mind blowing. I expect, links to articles. I definitely expect, especially if I'm paying them some sort of enterprise license, some form of a rep that may or may not know technical aspects of the product. But these guys over email are just super jazzed to jump in there and explore your problem and help you get to the insight that you're trying to get to. This has happened to me probably 10 or 12 times now at rewardStyle alone, much less other places. So I'm just, blown away by their support. And
that's cool.
Even in some of the support situations, they'll actually just reach out and set a meeting up with you and nail it down. So, usage interval was something we were exploring, and we want to do it right. And so just off of a question about usage interval, a success manager jumped on and pulled in a technical guy and got on the phone with me in like a day and walked me through how to execute it properly. It was amazing. It's just unreal.
So my next question, I think you kind of answered it already, also previously, but even now, if you feel that they're obsessing about you as a user, and I think just reading from your answers that they do.
Yeah, I'm probably in some kind of bucket that's like hyperactive because I'm.
You think it's only you?
They have you labeled. Yeah.
Oh yeah, I'm in a segment. Up. Yeah, I'm in a segment for sure. So we ship them enormous amounts of data, and one of the things that they let us know was that we stand out as one of the most querying companies that they have. So we're running lots of queries across lots of unique users in our company. In addition to that, I've also hit all of their webinars, downloaded all their white papers, all tracked, and I know it. And I know it because like all of their little in-app messaging keeps up with all this with me. And so I'm like, they're doing a really, really good MarTech integration here with their own product. It's really cool.
Good. That's good to hear. Excellent. Matt, did you have any other questions for Ken?
I feel like we can keep going on and on. I feel like there's still a lot that we can learn about Amplitude and how you're using it at your company. So
for sure.
No, this has been extremely helpful and extremely insightful in Amplitude and how you're using it and what it's capable of doing. As we've been through these different products between Mixpanel and Heap and Pendo, it's really interesting to hear the different capabilities of these products, what they can do, what they can't do, and how they compare. So it's really cool.
We learn every episode. We learn something new that I'm sure maybe the others can also handle, but we just never had the chance to talk about it. So eventually we might know everything about all of them, but I'm sure that's going to be hard without actually seeing them in action. At least we hope that our listeners will have value in what we learn here.
You know, and I'm still learning so much about how to execute things in Amplitude every day, and it just becomes more and more powerful. Like I just constantly bump into new little items all over the place that they added or I never saw, you know? So I'm, you know, I know I sound like a giant like salesperson, but I'm just a big fanboy of Amplitude. It just simplifies my life significantly as product manager.
If you have a good experience, that's good. I mean, you talk about it. No, I mean, that's good. That's what we're looking for. If you're having a positive experience with a product, I mean, that's what people need to know when they come to choosing a product on their own. First-hand account. That's not a sales pitch. It's not an Amplitude marketing slide. So that's good to hear.
And we're not affiliated with any of the product in any way. So
yeah, you guys gotta get on that, man.
One day, but it keeps us honest. So
definitely. Yeah,
absolutely,
definitely.
Non-bias.
Yep.
Well, Ken, it's been a real pleasure. Thank you so much for coming on the show. This has obviously been really helpful to Moshe and I, and hopefully helpful to the listeners. So thank you, and hopefully we can have you back at some point, and you can catch us up on the latest and greatest with Amplitude.
Or other products that you're using.
Exactly. For sure.
Thank you very much, Ken. Where can people reach out to you if they want to?
If you want to find me on LinkedIn, it's just Ken Hanson.
Sounds good. Thank you again, and please subscribe to Product for Product, and we'll talk to you next time.
Thank you very much, everybody.